We might be in the middle of an economic crisis. The world might be held to ransom by Vladimir Putin and his illegal invasion of Ukraine. And hard-pressed Brits may well be going through cost of living hell as mortgage rates rise and, thanks to inflation, pay packets dwindle. So we've got a few problems. But that's not enough to silence COVID zealots, hell-bent on more restrictions this winter. That's right, folks, the COVID industry, for that's what it is, ramps up the fear-mongering for another season of mask mandates, social distancing rules and vaccine tyranny. And who better to kick off this season of needless fear-mongering than the state broadcaster itself, the BBC, a service so good you risk jail if you don't pay for it. The Beeb's obsession with COVID at the expense of everything else was pointed out by former ONS statistician Jamie Jenkins this week. He tweeted, "A rise in COVID cases and Hugh Pym at the BBC is all over it for the main news bulletin, even when there's little impact on serious illness for the majority. Excess deaths for months for non-COVID reasons in under 60s and nothing on main news that I've seen. Selective BBC reporting, just shocking." Isn't it wonderful that we're paying through the nose 160 quid a year for this mental torture? And powerful groups like Independent Sage, who are the sectarian wing of Normal Sage, will stop at nothing until we're all masked, working from home, socially distanced, sanitised and freshly jabbed. At this point, hearing these siren voices calling for more restrictions is just a sick joke, given the damage these people have inflicted on our country. 2.5 years of experimental lockdowns that show no discernible benefit to countries and regions that stayed open and carried on as normal. We borrowed £500 billion to pay perfectly healthy people to stay at home, and we closed once viable businesses, all at the behest of those who thought you could control a seasonal respiratory virus. Well, the data's in, the numbers are there for all to see, and the graphs are clear. Stop it, we did not. Can you imagine if we had more economy-destroying measures in the months to come? We're surely just a couple of lockdowns away from being so broke as a country, we'll be deciding which of our firstborn children to eat first. Hearing from these destructive voices again, who should be hanging their heads in shame, is like the sound of your abuser once again knocking on the bedroom door. Forget about zero COVID. It's my view that there should be zero measures ever again. We spent 2.5 years protecting the NHS, who decided to focus almost exclusively on one disease, which is why we've got a waiting list of up to 12 million people, many suffering far more serious illnesses like cancer, bipolar disorder and diabetes, and they're all waiting for treatment. Environmentally catastrophic masks remain woefully unconvincing in relation to real-world data. Just compare countries that masked up and those that didn't. States in America that masked up and those that didn't. Show me how those filthy rags in any way moved the dial. They did not. Those masks are already back in hospitals, and here's what top cancer professor Carol Sikora had to say about them when I spoke to him on Thursday. Here's a question for you, Carol. Do masks make a blind bit of difference, especially those very cheap, flimsy surgical masks which are handed out at the entrance to hospitals?
Absolutely not. They make no difference at all.
But mark my words, the mask mandates will return. Economically damaging work-from-home directives will kick in, and vaccine tyranny will no doubt rear its ugly head. Although it's hard to sell now, given that Denmark have effectively banned the vaccine for anyone under 50. You've got to have a doctor's note and evidence of a serious medical condition to get a booster. And Norway have done the same for the under 65s. If you're under 65 in Norway, you will not be able to get boosted. Now, why would that be? I wonder if the Norwegians and the Danes are concerned about both the efficacy of the vaccine, in other words, if it works, and, dare I say it, the safety. Perhaps they've been looking at a report published in The Lancet from the University of Oxford, suggesting the vaccinated are 44% more likely to get COVID. Get jabbed to get the disease. That is some vaccine, isn't it? Perhaps the authorities in Denmark and Norway have been listening to Florida's highly impressive Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph A. Lapardo. Now, this guy is not a crank. He's not a journalist or a blogger spreading misinformation from his mum's bedroom. This is the Surgeon General of Florida, the state's top medic, who has now recommended against men aged 18 to 39 from receiving mRNA COVID-19 vaccines due to an 84% increase in heart-related death within 28 days of the jab. Oh dear, the house of cards is tumbling. 84% increase in heart-related death within 28 days of the jab. That is what I call a pandemic of the vaccinated. Meanwhile, Pfizer have partnered with Marvel Comics, urging readers to get the jab. This specially commissioned new comic is called Everyday Heroes, but which strikes me as a dystopian nightmare. This creepy level of brainwashing would make Chairman Mao proud. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the vaccine is fabulous for those at risk of hospitalisation and death. If you're in a vulnerable group, it's my view, you'd be mad not to have it. If I was at risk of hospitalisation or death from the virus, I'd have more holes in my arm than Pete Doherty in his prime. But I don't see any argument as to why we should be jabbing healthy people this winter, particularly children and young people, which is now the view of Denmark, Norway, and news just in, the Australians as well, as revealed by US journalist Alex Berenson. And he's gone into detail here. Australia, one of the most jab-happy countries in the world, who have been drinking the zero-COVID Kool-Aid for 2 years, they've stopped offering the vaccine to under 50s. Now, was any of this reported on the Beeb? Good luck with that. Now, perhaps I'm putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5, but it looks to me like these countries, Denmark, Norway, and even Australia, are running for the hills. It's my instinct that a day of reckoning in regard to the vaccines is coming, and I can't wait. I'll be bringing my popcorn. So it's my view that the COVID zealots were wrong on lockdowns, wrong on masks, wrong on social distancing, and yes, wrong on vaccine tyranny. Which is why I don't want to hear from any of those people again this winter. Sadly, COVID is going nowhere and is now a permanent threat and will place pressure on the NHS forevermore. Virus gonna virus. But pharmaceutical companies, the media and the political elite have created what is now a COVID industry, a cash-hungry machine fueled by fear for a potentially nasty virus, absolutely, but a virus which poses a vanishing threat to almost everyone. It's time to live with this virus as we do with all others and push back on any measures that threaten the economy, children's education, our mental and physical well-being, our freedoms and our way of life. For those calling for more measures which have already broken our country and broken our society, just say no. Now, where's that popcorn?